Hey guys, tonight we're climbing aboard something that barely exists anymore. We're going back to a time when crossing this whole wide country meant days, not hours, and when the getting there mattered just as much as the arriving. Picture a great train station on a cool morning in 1955. The light comes down through tall arched windows in long dusty columns. There is coffee somewhere, and cigarette smoke, and the warm oiled smell of machinery drifting up from the platforms below. A voice echoes off the marble, calling out the names of cities you have only ever traced with a finger on a map. That is where we are headed tonight, into the long, gentle, rocking world of a cross-country train trip, back when a journey was something you sank into rather than something you rushed through. Before we settle in, I want to say a real thank you to the listener who suggested this one. You told me a little about the trips your family used to take by rail, and it stayed with me for weeks. This channel only rolls forward because of ideas like yours, so please keep sending them. And if this is the kind of quiet corner of the internet you enjoy, a soft like, a subscribe, or a comment telling me where you're listening from tonight would mean the world. No pressure at all, just a warm hello from wherever you are, and a small note. The channel is now on Spotify as well. So if you would rather drift off with only the sound of my voice and no screen glowing beside you, the link is waiting for you down in the description. Now go ahead and get comfortable. Really comfortable. Dim the lights until the room goes soft and golden. Switch on a fan for that low, steady hush, the kind that sounds a little like a train already moving somewhere far away. Pull your blanket up, find the cool side of the pillow, and let your shoulders come down from your ears. And while you settle, let yourself wonder a few things. What did a train station actually feel like at 7 in the morning, before the whole country was in a hurry? What did the inside of a dining car smell like, with the linen pressed and the silver laid out and the kitchen already working? What did people talk about, strangers thrown together in a lounge car for 3 days, watching the same fields roll by? What did it feel like to fall asleep in one state and wake up in another, with nothing between you and the dark but a thin curtain and the sway of the rails? And just like that, it is 1955. Your ticket is folded in your coat pocket. Your trunk went ahead of you days ago. The platform is waking up around you, and somewhere down the track, a locomotive is building its steam. The country is enormous, and it is all still ahead of you. Let's begin. Let's start where every long trip starts, in the station itself, long before the wheels ever turn. You arrive early, because your mother taught you that trains wait for no one, and you stand for a moment just inside the tall doors, letting the sheer size of the place settle over you. The ceiling is so high it seems to hold its own weather. Pigeons wheel through the upper light. Below you, the great hall moves like a slow tide. Travellers in hats and good coats, red caps wheeling carts of luggage, a shoe-shine man snapping his cloth, and the smell of roasted coffee and warm pretzels braided through it all. It is grand and busy, and somehow still calm. A kind of hush underneath the noise that is very hard to find anywhere now. You move a few steps further in and let the current take you. Underfoot the marble floor is worn smooth in long pale rivers, where 100 years of shoes have passed, and you find yourself walking those same soft grooves without meaning to, following the exact path of everyone who ever came here full of somewhere to go. Above the arched doorways hang the great departure boards, and every few minutes a man behind them turns the little cards by hand, and the whole board comes alive with a soft wooden clatter, a sound like a flock of birds settling in a tree. You tilt your head back and read the names as they roll into place. Denver, Kansas City, Albuquerque, Los Angeles. each one a promise, each one a door. There is a bench along the wall, high-backed and dark and polished by decades of waiting, and you sit for a moment simply to watch. A young couple stands close together near the gate, not speaking, her gloved hand tucked into the crook of his arm, and you understand without being told that one of them is leaving and one of them is staying. An old woman counts her parcels twice, then a third time, her lips moving. A boy in a school cap presses his face to the glass of the newsstand, deciding how to spend a nickel that is burning a hole clean through his pocket. Everyone here is between two lives, the one they are stepping out of and the one they are travelling toward, and the station holds them all in the same gentle suspension, the way a church holds a whole town's worth of private prayers under one quiet roof. You catch the smell of the coffee stand again and rise to buy a cup, and the woman behind the counter pours it without asking, because at this hour there is only the one thing anyone wants. She slides it across in a heavy white mug, and you wrap both hands around the warmth of it and blow across the top. The steam rises up and joins the great cathedral of steam and smoke and morning light already gathered in the hall above you. Somewhere a shoe-shine box thumps closed. Somewhere a mother calls a child back to her side. And beneath it all, so low you feel it more than hear it, there is a rumble coming up through the soles of your shoes, the sound of the trains themselves waiting down below in the dark like the great slow heartbeat of the whole building. A conductor passes close by you, gold buttons catching the light, and the sight of him sends a small thrill down your spine, because he is proof that all of this is real, that the names on the board are not just names, that in a little while one of those enormous machines is going to gather you up and carry you clear across the country. You sip your coffee and let the size of that idea sink in. 2,000 miles, 3 days, whole states you have only ever seen coloured pink and green on a schoolroom map, and you're going to pass through every one of them, watching the light change over ground you have never stood on. It strikes you, standing there, how differently we treat a journey now, how we hurry through the terminals with our eyes on a screen, counting the minutes as something to be endured and got past. But here, on this morning, the getting there has not yet begun to feel like waste. Here the trip is still something to be entered, the way you enter a warm house on a cold night, slowly, gratefully, shaking off the world outside. The station is not a place you pass through. It is the first room of the journey, and you have arrived in plenty of time to stand in it. You finish the coffee. You set the empty mug back on the counter with a soft clink, and you gather your ticket and your small bag and turn toward the great gates and the stairs that lead down into the steam, feeling the morning open up ahead of you like the first page of a book you have been meaning your whole life to read. The high windows pour their long, dusty columns of light down across the hall behind you, and you carry a little of that light with you as you go, down toward the platforms, down toward the long, slow, rocking days ahead, down into the beginning of the trip you will remember for the rest of your life. Now come with me to the ticket window, where the trip becomes real. You slide your money across the worn brass counter, and the agent behind the grill studies his great book of schedules with the seriousness of a man reading scripture. He speaks in the language of railroads, of connections and layovers and berths, of the Chief and the Zephyr and the Eastbound Limited. You barely follow half of it, but you nod, because part of the pleasure is trusting him. He punches your ticket with a sharp, satisfying click and hands it back warm from his hands. You tuck it into your breast pocket and press your palm flat against it, just to feel that it is truly there. In that small paper rectangle is 3 days of your life, already spoken for. The window itself is a little world unto itself, a carved wooden arch with the brass counter worn to a soft gold shine right where 1,000 hands have rested before yours. Behind the grill, the agent sits framed in the glow of a green-shaded lamp, and all around him rise the tools of his trade, the wooden pigeonholes stuffed with tickets and timetables, the rubber date stamps, the fat ledgers, the little machine that prints your fare with a series of firm mechanical thumps. He wears sleeve garters to keep his cuffs clean and a visor to shade his eyes, and when he looks up at you it is with the calm, unhurried attention of a man who has all the time in the world and yet somehow never falls behind. You tell him where you're going, and he does not simply hand you a ticket, he plans your passage. He turns the great book toward the light and runs a pencil down the columns, murmuring the arithmetic of distance and hours under his breath. You will make this train here, he tells you, and change to that one there in the small hours, and if all runs to time, you will be having your supper somewhere out past the river by the second evening. He speaks of the country the way a farmer speaks of his fields, mile by mile, season by season, and you realize he carries the whole map of it inside his head, every junction and water stop and lonely siding between here and the sea. While he works, you become aware of the small line forming gently behind you, and of how patient it is. No one sighs, no one cranes to see the clock. A man in a good grey coat waits with his hat held against his chest. A woman studies a letter she's taken from her purse. There is an understanding here that this business cannot be rushed, that buying passage across half a continent is a thing of some weight, and that the man behind the grill is not an obstacle between you and your train, but a kind of guide standing at the mouth of the trail. You find yourself in no hurry at all. You're already, in some small way, aboard. He asks whether you will want a berth for the nights, and something in the question makes the trip suddenly enormous. A bed. A bed that will carry you through the dark while you sleep, across rivers and state lines you will never see. You say yes, and he makes a mark, and the mark means that somewhere on a train that has not yet arrived, a small private space is now yours, and yours alone. It is a strange and lovely thing to own, a piece of a journey before the journey has begun. Then comes the moment itself. The punch. He takes up his conductor's punch and drives it through your ticket with that crisp final click, and the little crescent of paper flutters down into a drawer already half full of them, the confetti of 1,000 departures. He blots the ink. He folds the ticket once cleanly, along its worn crease, and passes it back beneath the grill, and you take it, and it is warm. Warm from the lamp and from his hands, and you hold that small warmth for a moment as though it were alive. You step away from the window and out of the little pool of green lamplight, and you tuck the ticket into your breast pocket, over your heart, where a man keeps the things he cannot afford to lose. Your hand rises to it once, twice, pressing flat against your coat just to be sure. It is there. It is real. 3 days and 2,000 miles folded into a rectangle no bigger than your palm, resting now against your chest as you turn back toward the great hall and the light and the sound of the boards turning over. We have grown so used to the glowing screen, to the trip that lives nowhere but inside a phone and can vanish with a dead battery. But there was something in that warm slip of paper, something you could hold and fold and feel, that made the whole journey feel like a promise kept between two people who had looked each other in the eye. You had trusted him. He had sent you on your way. And you walk off toward the platforms with your hand still resting over your heart, carrying the weight of the trip, sweet and solid and entirely real, in a pocket over your beating heart. Let's talk now about the red cap, because no one forgot a good one. He appears at your elbow almost before you know you need him. An older gentleman in a crisp uniform with a cap the colour of a robin's breast, and he swings your heavy cases onto his cart as though they weigh nothing at all. He knows the station the way you know your own kitchen, every ramp and shortcut, which gate opens first where the crowd thins out. You follow in his wake, and for a few minutes you are simply cared for, guided through the great echoing rooms by a man who has done this 10,000 times. You press a folded bill into his hand at the platform and he touches his cap, and you feel, briefly, like someone worth looking after. But let's slow down and watch him work, because it is a kind of art, and it deserves to be seen. Your bags had felt to you like anchors, cases you had wrestled from the streetcar and hauled up the steps with your shoulders burning, and he lifts them with 2 fingers in a practice swing, settling them onto his cart in an order that only he understands, the heavy ones low, the fragile ones cradled, your hat box perched on top like the last stone in a wall. He does not strain, he does not fumble. His hands know the weight of every kind of luggage a traveller ever carried, and they treat each piece with the offhand tenderness of long habit. Then he sets off, and you hurry to keep up. He moves through the crowd the way water moves through a stream bed, finding the channel that is always open, the gap that is always there, and the great hall that had seemed a wall of hats and elbows parts before him, without his ever seeming to push. He calls out soft warnings, coming through, mind your step, and people give way with a smile, because everyone knows the Redcaps, everyone trusts them. He takes a turning you would never have found, down a quieter corridor that smells of luggage leather and floor wax, and suddenly you are walking in cool and open space while the crowd churns somewhere behind you. As he walks, he talks, easy and unhurried, and you find yourself telling him where you're bound. He nods as though he has been there himself many times, and perhaps he has, in a way, having sent so many others along the same iron road. He tells you which side of the car will catch the morning sun, and which stretch of the line has the finest scenery, and to be sure and go back to the dining car early on the first night before the crowd comes. He offers it all lightly, in passing, small gifts of knowledge dropped into your hands, and you gather them up gratefully, because they come from a man who has spent his whole life at the edge of other people's journeys. You come at last to the head of the stairs, and here he pauses, and you feel the coming change of air rise up to meet you. Cooler, thick with steam, and the mineral smell of the platforms below. He steadies the cart and leads you down, one careful step at a time, and there at the bottom is your car, your very car. The number chalked on a little board beside the door, and he wheels your cases right to the foot of the steps and begins to hand them up to the porter waiting above. The 2 men know each other. There is an easy word between them, a nod, a small joke you do not quite catch, and just like that your luggage passes from one pair of careful hands into another, and you understand that you have been passed along a chain of men who will look after you all the way across the country. Now comes the small ceremony of the parting. You reach into your pocket for the folded bill you set aside for exactly this, and you press it into his palm, and he takes it with a grace that never once makes you feel the transaction. A slight closing of the fingers, a nod, and then his hand rises to the brim of his cap in a gesture as old as railroads. It is not servility, and it is not a performance. It is the quiet courtesy of one working man to another, an acknowledgement that a service has been well given and honestly paid, and it warms you more than you expected it to. He wishes you a fine trip. He means it. And then he turns his empty cart and starts back up the stairs toward the great hall, and the next traveller standing lost and burdened at the door, the next set of anchors to lift like feathers, the next stranger to guide through the crowd and hand along the chain. We do so much for ourselves now, drag our own wheeled cases down our own grey corridors, and there is a kind of independence in it. But you stand there a moment at the foot of your car and miss, before you have even lost it, that vanished small grace of being looked after, of being for a few minutes on a busy morning someone worth the trouble of taking care. Now we descend down the wide stairs toward the platforms, and the whole feeling of the place changes. The air turns cooler and closer, thick with the smell of steam and coal and hot iron. The light goes dim and silver, and there, waiting at rest along the concrete, is the train itself, longer than you expected, gleaming and dark and enormous, breathing softly like a great animal that has run a long way and will run a long way again. Steam curls up around its wheels. Somewhere far down its length the locomotive ticks and sighs. You stand there a moment, small beside all that steel, and feel the first true flutter of the trip in your chest. The platform stretches away in both directions farther than you can easily see, its edge marked by a yellow line worn faint by years of shoe leather, and along it the great cars stand shoulder to shoulder like a row of dark houses on a narrow street. You had thought, from the pictures, that you knew how big a train would be. You did not. It rises above you, taller than a man's reach, and it runs on and on down the platform, car after car after car, so that the far end of it dissolves into the steam and the dimness before it ever comes to a stop. You have to tilt your head to take in the height of a single window. You're standing beside something that was built to cross a continent, and your whole body understands it at once. Everywhere around you the platform is at work. Baggage men roll their long carts alongside the cars, swinging trunks and cases up through the wide doors. A man with a long-spouted oil can moves down the line of wheels, bending to each one, feeding it, murmuring to the machinery in a language of drops and clicks. Another walks the length of the train, tapping each wheel with a hammer, listening to the ring of it, reading the soundness of the steel by ear alone. You had never known there was so much care taken, so many hands laid on the great machine before it ever moved, all of it quiet, all of it practiced, all of it happening below the notice of the travellers up in the light. The smell of it fills you completely, and it is a smell you know you will never quite forget. There is the sharp mineral bite of the steam, and the darker, oilier note of the coal, and under those the hot smell of the iron itself, and threaded through it all a faint sweetness you cannot name, some perfume of grease and warm metal and long distance. You breathe it in, and it goes straight to some old part of you, the part that thrilled as a child at the sound of a whistle in the night, and you feel your heart lift and quicken in a way it has not done in years. You walk slowly down the platform toward your car, letting your hand trail an inch from the cold flank of the train, close enough to feel the chill coming off the steel. Up close you can see the great rivets, each one the size of a thumb, marching in their neat rows along the seams, and the paint gleaming darkly under its film of soot, and the names and numbers lettered in gold along the sides. Through the lower windows you glimpse the warm interiors, the lamps already lit, a passenger's face turned to the glass, and it strikes you that the train is already a place people are living inside, a moving town with its rooms all glowing, and that in a few minutes you will be one of the lit faces looking out. Somewhere far ahead, up where the platform curves away, the locomotive lets go a long, slow sigh of steam, a great white cloud that rolls down the platform toward you and swallows the legs of the travellers and breaks apart around your knees, warm and damp and gone in an instant. The whole train seems to shift and settle as it breathes, ticking, creaking, alive in the way only very large machines at rest can seem alive, gathering itself in the dimness for the enormous work ahead. You feel the smallness of yourself against it, and strangely, the smallness is a comfort. You are about to place your whole self, your sleep and your meals and your safety, into the keeping of this great patient animal, and it seems entirely worthy of the trust. We race through our stations now, our trains sleek and sealed and silent, and we scarcely look up from our screens to see them. But to stand on that platform, in the cool silver light, breathing the steam and the coal and the hot iron, small beside all that gleaming steel, was to feel the true size of a journey before it had even begun, to understand in your bones that you were about to do a great thing, and you did not hurry. You stood, and you looked up, and you let the wonder of it settle over you like the drifting steam, and only then did you turn toward the little iron steps in your own warm car and the beginning of everything. Let's meet the conductor, the quiet king of this whole rolling world. He stands beside the vestibule steps in his dark uniform, his cap squared just so, and he greets each traveller with a small nod as they board. From a pocket he draws a watch on a chain, gold and heavy, and he studies it the way a captain studies the sky. The train, you understand at once, belongs to him. He knows the timetable in his bones, knows every mile of track and every water stop between here and the coast. When he finally lifts his voice and calls the long, unhurried word that means it is time, the sound of it goes right through you, and something in your body knows the day has truly begun. Look at him a moment as you approach, because a man like this repays looking at. His uniform is dark wool, pressed to a knife edge, the brass buttons polished until they throw back the platform lights, and on the front of his cap sits a small enamelled badge that says simply, "What he is." His shoes gleam. His collar is white and stiff. He is dressed for this the way a man dresses for something that matters, and it matters to him. You can see that plainly in the set of his shoulders and the steadiness of his eye. He's not merely riding this train, he is answerable for it, for every soul aboard and every minute of its passage, and he wears that weight the way some men wear a fine coat, easily, proudly, as though it were made for him. The watch is the heart of him. When he draws it from his vest pocket, it comes up on its gold chain like something raised from deep water, round and heavy and catching the light, and he holds it in his open palm and reads it with a glance that misses nothing. That watch is no ordinary timepiece. It has been checked and certified and set against the master clocks, tested to keep time truer than almost any watch in the country, because out here on the single track, where two trains might share one line, a matter of seconds is a matter of lives. He knows this. He has known it his whole working life. And so he consults the watch, not with worry but with a deep and settled reverence, the way another man might consult his conscience. As the travellers file past him, he greets each one, and you notice that he sees them, really sees them, in the swift, kind, appraising way of a man who has spent 40 years reading people on platforms. He tips his cap to the old woman and offers his arm up the steps. He has a wink for the wide-eyed child. He marks the young soldier and the nervous bride and the businessman already frowning at his own thoughts, and he files them all away, because before the trip is over he will know most of them by name and by need, and he will move through his swaying kingdom looking after everyone. You give him your ticket and he glances at it and at you together, and something in his nod tells you that you have been noticed, that you're accounted for now, that whatever happens on this long road ahead, this man knows you're aboard. Then he steps back and lifts the watch one final time, and the whole platform seems to feel it. The last cases are handed up. The last farewells are cut short. A mother lifts a child to a window for one more wave. The conductor watches the second hand sweep around toward the appointed mark, and he lets it come. Patient, unhurried, absolutely certain, and only when it arrives at the very place does he close the watch with a soft gold click and slide it home into his vest, and then he calls it. He turns his head and draws a breath and sends the great old cry rolling down the length of the platform, that long, climbing, unhurried word that railroad men have called out for 100 years, the word that means the doors are closing, the word that means the country is about to begin sliding by, the word that means all aboard. It is not a shout. It does not need to be. It carries down the concrete and up into the steam and into the chest of every traveller who hears it, and something ancient and true wakes up inside you at the sound, some old knowledge that a journey is starting and there is no calling it back now. The doors swing shut. The conductor swings himself up onto the step with the offhand ease of a man who has done it 50,000 times, and he pauses there a moment, one hand on the rail, and casts a last long look back down the platform, checking, always checking, the shepherd counting his flock. We have handed so much of that watchfulness over now, to timetables that run themselves and signals that need no man to read them. But there was a great comfort, settling into your seat, in knowing that somewhere up the line, a real man with a real gold watch was holding the whole train in his careful hands, and that he would not let a single minute or a single soul slip away from him uncounted. Come aboard now, up the little iron steps and into the car itself. The doorway is narrow, and the air inside is different again, warm and clean, smelling of upholstery and floor wax and someone's cologne. The aisle stretches away before you, lined with tall seats the colour of good wine, each one deep enough to disappear into. You find your number, stow your small bag in the rack overhead, and lower yourself down by the window. The seat receives you like an old chair in a familiar house. Outside the glass the platform still bustles, but in here it has gone quiet and cushioned, and for the first time you feel it, the sense of having a small, moving home of your own. Take a moment now, before the train pulls out, to let your eyes travel over the little world you've entered. The ceiling curves gently overhead, panelled and warm, set with soft round lamps that will glow amber when the dark comes down. The walls are finished in wood polished to a low shine, and brass fittings gleam at every window and door, kept bright by hands you will never see. Everything is built close and snug and well, the way a good ship is built, every inch of space made to earn its keep, and yet it does not feel cramped. It feels held. It feels like a place made by people who understood that you would live here for days and who wanted quietly for you to be comfortable. Your seat is a marvel all its own. It is broad and deep and sprung just right, upholstered in that deep wine-coloured plush that is soft under your palm and cool against your cheek when you lean, and it reclines when you find the little lever tilting you back toward rest. There is a footrest that folds down for your feet. There is a small shaded lamp at your shoulder for reading. There is an ashtray set into the armrest and a little fold of netting on the seat back ahead, where you can tuck your magazine and your book. Someone thought of all of it. Someone sat down years ago and imagined a traveller exactly like you and asked what that traveller might reach for, and then they built it in. You reach up and settle your small bag into the rack above, the woven brass rack that runs the length of the car, and the simple act of stowing your things makes the space feel like yours. Your coat goes on the hook by the window. Your hat rides up in the rack beside your bag. Down at your feet there is room for the little case you want to keep near, the one with your book and your letters and the sandwich your mother pressed on you at the door despite your protests. You arrange these few things with more care than they strictly need, because arranging them is how you move in, how you tell yourself that this narrow, warm place is home now, at least the length of the country. The other travellers are settling too, all down the length of the car, and you watch them without watching, in the easy way of strangers who will be neighbours for a while. A businessman shakes out his newspaper with a snap and vanishes behind it. An elderly couple across the aisle debate in low, fond voices about which of them will take the window. A young mother arranges her children 2 by 2 and produces from some bottomless bag exactly the right small toy for each. There is a gentle rustling and murmuring all around, the sound of many people making themselves at home at once, and it is a comfortable sound, the sound of a car full of lives about to be carried together into the west. Out your window the platform still moves through its last busy minutes, the baggage men trotting, a latecomer running with his hat held to his head, a porter leaning out to look up the line. But you notice that the glass has already begun to hold it all at a small remove, that the bustle out there no longer quite touches you, that you are watching it now the way you might watch a scene through a window at home, warm and dry and slightly apart. The line between out there and in here has been drawn, and you are on the good side of it, the sheltered side, and the knowledge settles into you as softly as the cushions at your back. You lean your head against the seat and let out a long breath you did not know you had been holding. You are early, and everything is done. The ticket is in your pocket, the bags are stowed, the seat is yours. There is nothing left to arrange, nothing left to worry, nothing to do now but wait for the gentle jolt and let the country come to you. We spend so much of our travel now cramped and anxious, our knees to our chests, our things clutched in our laps, counting the hours till it ends. But to sink into that deep wine-coloured seat, in that warm and well-made car, and feel it receive you like a chair by your own fire, was to understand that the journey itself could be a kind of home, and that you had for once arrived somewhere before you had gone anywhere at all. Now feel the moment everyone waits for. There's gentle jolt, a soft clash of couplings running down the length of the train, and then, so smoothly you almost miss it, the platform begins to slide backward past your window. You are moving. The station's great pillars glide away, then the dim yards full of resting cars, then the backs of tall buildings with their fire escapes and painted signs. The city unspools slowly, then a little faster, and the rhythm of the rails settles into that steady heartbeat you will come to know by heart. You press your forehead to the cool glass and watch the only world you know quietly let you go. The first thing you feel is how gentle it is. You had braced yourself, without quite knowing it, for something violent, a great heave, a struggle. Instead, there is only that soft ripple of the couplings taking up their slack, car after car after car, a sound like a long word being spoken slowly down the length of the train, and then the whole enormous weight of it eases into motion so smoothly that for a heartbeat you cannot tell whether it is the train that moves or the platform. You watch a porter standing still on the concrete, and it is he who seems to drift away from you, sliding backward out of your life, growing smaller, lift in one hand, gone. Then the pillars begin to pass, the great stone columns of the platform gliding by one after another, faster now, throwing their bars of shadow across your face, light and dark, light and dark. A slow flicker that quickens as the train finds its feet. The roof of the station slides back overhead, and suddenly there is sky, grey and wide and cut across with wires, and you are out in the open yards where 100 other trains stand waiting on 100 silver tracks. You glide past them, past cabooses and boxcars and long lines of tankers, past men in overalls who do not even look up, so used are they to the endless coming and going, and the tracks beneath you multiply and cross and weave, and the wheels begin to sing over the switches, a clattering music, then settle again. The backs of the city rise up now, and this is the part you never see, the secret unglamorous face a city turns only to its railroads. Brick warehouses with their windows soaped or broken, fire escapes zigzagging down the rears of buildings, wash hung out on lines strung between the tenements, shirts and sheets waving as though seeing you off. Painted signs 100 years old, faded to ghosts, advertising flour and soap and remedies no one remembers. Children playing in a cindered lot look up and wave with their whole arms, and you wave back before you can stop yourself, and they are gone. This is the true city, the working city, and the train slips through its heart the way a needle slips through cloth, close and intimate, and then away. And now the rhythm comes, the one you will live inside for 3 days, the one that will follow you into your dreams and be there still when you wake. The wheels find the joints in the rails and begin to count them off, that steady 2-beat clatter, and then a third and a fourth, until it braids itself into the long rolling music of a train at speed. You feel it come up through the floor and into your feet and settle in your chest right alongside your own pulse, until you cannot quite tell the two apart. It is the sound of distance being eaten, mile by patient mile, and already some tight wound thing inside you is beginning to loosen in time with it. You press your forehead to the glass, and it is cool and faintly trembling, and out beyond it the city is beginning to thin. The tall buildings give way to shorter ones, the shorter ones to houses, the houses to houses with the little yard, and you watch the density of the only world you've ever known slowly, gently open its hand and let you slip through its fingers. There goes the neighbourhood where a cousin lives. There goes a church steeple you would know anywhere. There goes the last familiar water tower, its name painted round the tank, and then even that is behind you, and the country ahead is all unknown. There's a particular feeling in this, and it is not quite sadness, though sadness is in it. It is the feeling of being let go, of the place that made you loosening its hold and wishing you well and turning back to its own affairs. You are leaving, and the city does not mourn, and there is a strange comfort in that, in being so small a part of so large a thing that your going leaves no mark. We move so fast now that this slow letting go has all but vanished, the world outside our windows just a smear, gone before we can feel it leave. But on that first slow mile out of the station, forehead to the cool trembling glass, you got to watch your whole known world unspool and slip quietly away behind you, and you understood, with a lift and an ache both at once, that the journey had truly, finally begun. Let's follow the sound of the chimes now. That soft musical note a steward walks through the cars announcing that the dining car is open. You rise and make your way forward, swaying with the motion, catching the seat backs like a sailor learning the deck. And then you step through the door, and there it is, a proper restaurant somehow set inside a moving train. White tablecloths, folded napkins standing like little sails, fresh flowers in a slender vase, and heavy silver that trembles ever so faintly with the rhythm of the wheels. A waiter in a white coat pulls out your chair. Out the window the countryside is flowing past like a river. You have never eaten anywhere quite like this, and you know it already. The chimes themselves are the loveliest summons you have ever answered. The steward comes down the aisle carrying a little set of tuned bars, and he runs a soft mallet across them as he walks, and the notes rise and fall in a gentle rippling scale. 3 or 4 clear tones that hang in the warm air of the car and then fade, only to sound again a little further along. It is nothing like a bell or a buzzer. It is closer to music, a small courteous melody that seems to say, "At your leisure, whenever you are ready, there is something good waiting for you toward the front of the train." You set down your book, and you rise, and you go. The walk forward is an adventure all its own, because you have not yet found your train legs. The floor rolls softly beneath you, and you learn quickly to move with it rather than against it, to let your knees stay loose, to reach out and steady yourself on the tall seat backs as you pass, hand over hand, the way you might cross a stream on stones. You pass through the hissing accordion of the vestibule, where the 2 cars breathe against each other, and the noise of the wheels comes roaring up for a moment, and then through the far door into the next car and the next, working your way toward the middle of the train, and the good smells already reaching back to meet you. And then you push through one last door, and the whole thing opens up before you, and it stops you where you stand. It is a restaurant. There's no other word for it, and yet the word is not enough, because no restaurant you have ever entered was rushing across the earth at 50 miles an hour, with the whole country pouring past its windows. The tables run down both sides of the car, dressed in linen so white it seems to give off its own light, and at each place the silver is laid out in its proper order, the glasses stand ready, and a single fresh flower leans in a slender silver vase, nodding faintly with the motion. The light is soft and golden. The air smells of coffee and roasting meat and starched linen, and under it all, always, the faint sweet railroad smell of steam. A waiter comes to meet you, and he is a picture of dignity. In a white coat pressed and spotless, a cloth folded over his arm, and he greets you as though you were expected, as though a table had been kept for you all along. He leads you down the swaying aisle with a hand ready at each seat back, and he draws out your chair with a small flourish and settles you into it, and shakes out your napkin and lays it across your lap before you have quite understood what is happening. You are seated. You are cared for. Out the window at your elbow the countryside streams by, a river of green and gold, barns and fences and a boy on a horse in a far field, all of it flowing, while you sit still at your white table in the golden light. Across from you, if the car is full, a stranger may be seated, for the dining car seats where there is room and thinks nothing of it, and this is part of its particular magic. You nod to one another. You exchange the smallest of pleasantries, the weather, the smoothness of the ride, where each of you is bound. And already, in that small forced nearness, something friendly begins, the first thread of the easy company that only a train seems able to weave, strangers made briefly into companions by the simple fact of sharing a table and a direction, and a moving view. You take it all in, the linen and the silver and the flower and the flowing land, and you feel something you did not expect, a kind of quiet astonishment that anyone would take such trouble, would carry fresh flowers and starched cloth and fine china across a continent just so that a traveller could feel, for 1 hour, like an honoured guest. We eat now on the move from paper and plastic, balanced on our knees, our eyes on a screen, the food an afterthought and the setting nothing at all. But to be led to a white-clothed table in a golden car, and seated with ceremony, and to lift your eyes from the gleaming silver to a whole country flowing past the glass, was to understand that the railroad believed a meal should be an occasion, and that you, a traveller far from home, were worthy of a little grace. Stay with me in the dining car, because this deserves its own slow moment. You pencil your order onto the little printed card, the way things were properly done, and hand it across with a small thrill of ceremony. The food, when it comes, is real food, roast beef, and buttered potatoes, and warm rolls in a folded napkin. All of it prepared in a kitchen no wider than a hallway by men working shoulder to shoulder over the flame. You cut into it as the whole car gently rocks, and you learn to time your fork to the sway of the rails. Strangers at the next table smile at you. The coffee is hot and dark and never seems to run out. It is a small, moving miracle, and you savour every bite. The little order card is a pleasure in itself. It comes with the stub of pencil sharpened to a fine point, and you're meant to mark your own choices with it, checking the boxes beside the dishes you want, writing in a note if you like your beef a certain way. There is something dignified in it, in being trusted to set down your own wishes in your own hand rather than merely speaking them, and you take your time over it, reading the whole card through twice, the soups and the roasts and the pies, before you make your small marks and hand the card up to the waiter with the quiet satisfaction of a thing done properly. While you wait, you let yourself wonder at the kitchen, because the more you think on it, the more remarkable it becomes. Somewhere just beyond the swinging door at the end of the car in a galley narrower than a hallway, men are cooking a full and proper dinner for 100 travellers over open flame on a floor that never once stops rocking. There is no room to turn around in there, no room to set anything down, and yet out of it comes roast beef done to a turn and potatoes crisped golden, and rolls still warm from the oven, plate after plate after plate, never late, never wrong. You cannot see them, those cooks in their whites in the heat and the sway, but you send them a small silent thanks, because you understand now that your dinner is a kind of feat. When the plate arrives, it is set before you with care, warm to the touch, the china heavy and good, and the smell of it rises up and undoes you a little, the honest smell of roast meat and butter and bread. This is no trifling portion, no delicate arrangement meant more to be admired than eaten. This is a real dinner, generous and plain and beautifully cooked, the kind of food that was made to feed a hungry traveller and not to have its picture taken, and your mouth waters at the sight of it. The gravy steams, the butter melts golden into the split roll. You unfold your napkin the rest of the way and take up the heavy silver fork, and you begin. And now you learn the small art that every railroad diner must learn, the timing of the fork to the sway of the car. The train rolls gently side to side, and your soup, had you ordered it, would lean and rise in its bowl like a small tide, and your coffee tilts in its cup, and you discover that if you simply move with it, if you let your hand ride the motion instead of fighting it, everything stays where it belongs. You cut your beef on the downswing, you lift your fork on the level. Within a few bites it has become second nature, a kind of dance you did not know your body knew, and you eat in easy rhythm with the whole rolling train, at home now in its motion. Across the way the strangers at the next table catch your eye and smile, because they have been watching you find your rhythm, and they remember finding their own. A word passes between you, then another. The old easy talk of the dining car begins, unhurried, kindly. the talk of people with a country's worth of time on their hands, and it seasons the meal as surely as the salt. The waiter passes and, without being asked, fills your cup again from a silver pot, hot and dark and fragrant, and you understand that he will keep on filling it as long as you sit, that the coffee on this train is a river that does not run dry, and the small, endless generosity of it warms you as much as the drink itself. You eat slowly because there is no reason on earth to hurry, and the land flows by golden at your elbow, and the silver trembles faintly on the white cloth, and the coffee steams, and you think that you have rarely in your life been so simply, thoroughly content. We have grown so used to eating as an errand now, fast and forgettable, fuel taken on the run with hardly a thought. But to sit at a white table in a rocking car and cut into an honest dinner, cooked by unseen hands in an impossible kitchen, timing your fork to the sway of the rails while a continent poured past the glass, was to be reminded that a meal is not merely eating, that it can be an act of care given and received between strangers, a small warm ceremony carried across the whole wide country at 50 miles an hour, just for you. Now let's wander back to the observation car, the great gift at the rear of the train. Here the windows are wide and tall, wrapping around the very end of the last car, and the seats face outward so that everyone can simply watch. The land pours away behind you, the two rails narrowing to a single silver thread that stitches you to everything you have left. People sit quietly here, a magazine forgotten in a lap, a cigarette burning down to nothing, all of them looking out at the enormous unrolling country. No one feels the need to talk. There is a peace to it, a togetherness in the silence that our restless little screens have never once managed to give us. You make your way to the very back, the last car of the whole long train, and it feels a little like coming to the edge of something, the trailing hem of the journey where the country you have crossed gathers itself up behind you. The car is built for watching, and you can see that at once. The windows here are enormous, taller and wider than anywhere else on the train, and they curve around the sides and across the rounded end so that the glass seems to hold nearly the whole world at once. The chairs are deep and comfortable and turn to face outward, not toward one another, as though everyone here has agreed without a word that the view is the only thing worth facing. You sink into one of them and let your eyes go to the glass, and there it is, the great trick of the observation car, the sight that no other seat on the train can give you. The land does not come toward you here. It flows away. The tracks run out from beneath you in two bright ribbons, and you watch them stream backward, dwindling, drawing together with distance until far off they meet and become a single silver thread, one shining line stitching straight back to the horizon, back to the last town, back to the city you left, back to everything and everyone behind you. It is the whole journey laid out in reverse, unspooling from under your feet, and you could watch it for hours, and you very nearly do. There are others here, a scattering of quiet travellers, and you notice with a small pleasure that no one is really doing anything at all. A man has a magazine open on his knee, but his eyes are on the window and the pages do not turn. A woman's knitting rests in her lap, the needles still. Someone's cigarette burns slowly down between two fingers, forgotten, the ash growing long, the smoke rising up in a thin blue thread to join the haze that hangs beneath the ceiling. Everyone is simply looking. Everyone has surrendered to the view and to the peculiar restfulness of watching where you have been rather than where you are going. And the country gives them plenty to watch. It rolls away endlessly, fields and woodlots and little rivers crossed in an instant on trembling bridges, A farmhouse with its wash on the line, a dog running the length of a fence just to bark at the passing train and losing, always losing, falling back and giving up and growing small. A crossing swings by with its bell dinging and a single car waiting behind the gate. A face at the wheel turned up to watch you pass, there and gone. The telegraph wires along the line dip and rise, swooping from pole to pole in a long hypnotic rhythm that you find yourself following with your eyes until you are nearly in a trance. No one speaks, and this is the strange gift of the place. You would think that so many strangers gathered in one small car might feel awkward in the silence, might reach for chatter to fill it. But they do not, and neither do you, and the quiet is not empty. It is full. It is the companionable quiet of people doing the same thing together, watching the same country slip away, held in the same slow wonder, and there is a togetherness in it deeper than any talk. You are all bound the same direction. You're all watching the same thread of rail draw you on, and the shared silence knits you together more surely than words ever could. You settle deeper into the chair, and you let the long day and the long miles wash over you, and you feel something inside you go still that has not been still in a very long time. There is nowhere to be. There is nothing to answer. There is only the great unrolling country and the silver thread of the tracks and the quiet company of strangers all facing the same way into the same fading light. We fill our every quiet moment now, our eyes forever pulled down to the small bright screens in our hands, so that a stretch of silence has come to feel like something to be escaped. But to sit in that great glass car at the end of the train, watching the whole country pour away behind you into a single shining line, saying nothing, needing nothing, at peace among strangers who wanted nothing from you but to share the view, was to remember a kind of stillness we have very nearly forgotten how to bear, and to find, once you gave yourself over to it, that it was not empty at all, but one of the fullest and most peaceful hours of the whole long trip. Let's turn now to evening, and to the Pullman porter, one of the quiet heroes of the whole railroad age. As the light goes soft and gold outside, he moves through the sleeping car with practiced ease, and section by section he performs a kind of magic. Where your seat was an hour ago, there is now a snug berth, the mattress firm, the sheets crisp and white, and tucked with corners sharp enough to please a nurse, a small reading lamp glowing beside the pillow. He hangs a heavy curtain across the opening and shows you the little hooks for your watch and glasses. He remembers your name. He remembers everyone's name, and he does it all with a grace that made travellers trust him with the whole of their nights. Watch him work, because it truly is a wonder, and it happens so smoothly you might miss it if you did not pay attention. He begins at one end of the car and moves down it section by section, and under his hands the daytime world folds itself away, and the nighttime world unfolds in its place. He reaches up and brings down the upper berth, which had ridden all day hidden in the curve of the ceiling, and it swings open like a secret the car had been keeping. He tips the facing seats toward one another and they become the lower bed. From somewhere he produces mattresses, pillows, blankets, sheets, all of it stored away in spaces you never suspected, and he makes each bed with a few swift practiced motions, snapping the sheet out flat, tucking the corners tight and square. The linen is the thing you remember. It is white, truly white, and cool and crisp under your hand, ironed smooth, smelling faintly of soap and starch and the clean, cold air of the laundries where it was pressed. He tucks it so tightly that the whole berth seems drawn as taut as a drum, the corners folded into neat, sharp triangles that a hospital nurse would nod at, and the blanket laid over all and turned back just so at the top, ready for you to slide into. He sets the pillow at the head, plump and inviting, and beside it he shows you the small green shaded lamp that will let you read in your own little cave of light, and the mesh pocket on the wall where you may tuck your watch and your spectacles and whatever small things you want near you in the night, and then the curtain, which changes everything. He draws it across the open side of your berth, a heavy dark curtain hung from big brass buttons, and with one motion the whole bustling car falls away and you're enclosed, sealed into a snug, private world no bigger than a large closet and yet entirely, wonderfully your own. He shows you how it fastens from the inside, so that no one may so much as glimpse in, and how the little slit at the bottom lets you set your shoes out to be shined in the night, for they will be there in the morning gleaming, though you never see the hand that does it. What strikes you most is that he knows your name. You told it to him once, hours ago in passing, and now he uses it easily, as though you were an old acquaintance, and you realize he has done the same for every soul in the car, learned 24 names in an afternoon and holds them all without effort. He knows which passenger takes the lower berth on account of bad knees, and which child must be settled first, and which nervous traveller wants a word of reassurance before the dark comes down. He carries the whole small society of the car in his head, its needs and its worries and its little kindnesses, and he moves among them all night long, quiet as a shadow, so that others might sleep, for it is his night that buys your rest. Long after the last curtain is drawn, and the car has gone dark and still, he is awake, sitting up at his little seat at the end of the car, listening to the train, ready. If a child cries out, he is there. If someone rings, he comes. He shines the shoes, and he presses a suit if one is left out, and he answers the buzzer, and he keeps the watch through all the small hours while a car full of strangers sleeps trustingly behind their curtains, carried through the dark at his keeping. It was hard work and long, and the men who did it with a dignity and a grace that the travellers of that age remembered all their lives. You take one last look down the car before you climb in, at the long row of dark curtains hung now where the seats had been, each one hiding a small warm world, each one a person settling towards sleep. The porter passes softly, dimming the last of the lights, and he catches your eye and gives you a small nod, good night, and calls you by your name once more. We make our own beds now in our own sealed rooms, and there is a privacy in it, and a loneliness too. But to hand your night over to a man like that, to trust that he would keep the whole dark car safe while you slept, and to wake and find your shoes shined and your world folded neatly back to day, was to be looked after in a way we have very nearly let slip out of the world, and it warmed the travellers of that age long after the trains themselves were gone. Now climb up into that berth with me and pull the curtain closed. The little world it makes is dim and warm, and entirely your own. You lie back, and the whole train rocks you, a long, slow, side-to-side motion older than any lullaby, and beneath you the rails keep up their steady two-beat rhythm, clack and clack, mile after mile after mile. Outside your window, past the drawn shade, the dark country slides by, a farmhouse light here, a lonely crossing bell there, gone almost before you see it. You had thought you might not sleep, but the motion takes you gently, the way a hand smooths a child's hair, and somewhere out in the dark you drift off without meaning to. The first thing you notice lying there is how completely the curtain has made the world small. Beyond it the car is dark and full of the soft sounds of other people settling. a cough, a whisper, the creak of a berth, the porter's quiet footfall passing. But in here there is only you, and the cool, crisp sheets, and the little green lamp throwing its soft circle of light on the pillow, and the low curved ceiling close above your face. It is like being a child again, tucked into some secret place under the stairs or inside a fort of blankets, that old delicious feeling of being hidden and safe and entirely alone with your own small warm world. You reach up and lift the edge of the window shade an inch just to see, and the dark country is there, streaming by. There is not much to see at this hour, and that is its own kind of beauty. A farmhouse stands off across a black field with a single yellow window burning in it, some family awake in the night for reasons you will never know, there and then gone behind you forever. A grade crossing swings past with its red light swinging and its bell ringing, dinging away into the distance the instant you have caught it. Now and then a little town flares up all at once, a scatter of street lamps, a lit storefront, a main street empty in the dark, and is swallowed again as quickly as it came. You're passing through 100 lives tonight, and none of them will ever know you were there. Then you let the shade fall and lie back, and you give yourself over to the motion, and this is the heart of it, the thing the travellers remembered longest. The whole train sways, a long slow roll from side to side, gentle as the deck of a great ship on an easy sea, and beneath that swaying comes the rhythm of the rails, that steady two-beat clack-clack, the wheels crossing the joints in the track over and over, mile after patient mile. It is older than any lullaby a mother ever hummed. It is the rhythm of distance itself, of the earth turning under you, and your body knows it somehow, recognizes it as something deeply and anciently right, and begins, without your permission, to let go. You'd been so sure you would lie awake. It is a strange bed, after all, in a strange narrow room, hurtling through the dark at 50 miles an hour, and your mind is still full of the day, the great station and the golden dining car and the country pouring away behind the observation glass. But the motion will not let you keep hold of any of it. Each thought you reach for softens and drifts and comes loose, the way a boat comes loose from its mooring and turns slowly out toward open water. The rocking smooths your mind the way a hand smooths a child's hair, over and over, patient, tender, asking nothing, and one by one your worries lie down. Your eyes grow heavy. The little lamp glows warm and gold behind your lids. Somewhere far ahead the locomotive lets go a long low cry into the night, that lonesome wail that carries across the sleeping country for miles, and it does not frighten you at all. It comforts you. It is the voice of the great animal that carries you, telling the dark that it is coming through, telling you that all is well, that you are held, that you may rest. You reach up with the last of your waking will and switch off the little lamp, and the dark comes down soft and complete, and there is only the sway and the clack and the far cry of the whistle. And then you are gone, drifted off between one clack of the rails and the next, sunk down into a sleep as deep and easy as any you have ever known, while the train bears you on faithfully through the dark, across rivers and county lines and sleeping towns you will never see, carrying you westward mile by mile while you lie unknowing in your small safe berth. We toss now in our still beds in our silent rooms, chasing a sleep that will not come, reaching for the little glowing screen that only pushes it further off, but to be rocked to rest by a whole train, cradled in that ancient rhythm and carried onward while you slept, was to sleep the way we were perhaps always meant to, held and moving and unafraid, and the travellers of that age remembered it, some of them as the finest night's sleep of their whole lives. Let's wake up now, slowly, the way you do on a train. For a moment you do not know where you are. There is grey light at the edge of the shade, and the rhythm is still there beneath you, patient and unbroken. You lift the shade an inch, and your breath catches, because the world outside is nothing like the one you fell asleep in. The green farmland is gone. In its place, a wide flat plain runs out to a horizon so far away it seems to curve. You slept through 3 states without knowing it. You crossed rivers in your dreams, and you understand, lying there in the cool morning light, that this is the strange magic of the train. It carries you while you rest, and delivers you somewhere new. For those first few moments you simply lie still and let your mind catch up to your body. You know the sway. You know the clack of the rails, still going, faithful, unbroken through the whole long night. But your mind gropes for the room it expects, the walls it knows, and finds instead this low curved ceiling, and this narrow berth, and this small grey line of light along the bottom of the shade, and for a heartbeat you are nowhere at all, floating, unmoored, somewhere between the country you left and the country you have not yet seen. It is not a frightening feeling. It is closer to wonder. You have been carried so far in the dark that you must reintroduce yourself to the world. Then you reach up and lift the shade, and the breath goes out of you. The land is utterly changed. The soft green farmland you fell asleep to, the woodlots, and the little rivers and the barns. All of it is gone, wiped clean away in the night as though it never been. In its place lies a great flat plain, vaster than anything you have ever seen, running out and out in every direction to a horizon so distant and so level that you could almost believe you saw the gentle curve of the earth itself. There is grass, pale gold and endless, bending all one way under a wind you cannot feel. There is a sky bigger than any sky you have known, going up forever, grey and pearl with the very first light. And there is nothing else. No town, no hill, no tree. Just the plain and the sky, and the two of them meeting far, far away. You lie there propped on one elbow and try to take the measure of what has happened to you. You slept, and while you slept the great train bore you on across whole states you will never remember passing. It carried you over rivers on trembling bridges, the wheels booming hollow over the water, and you did not stir. It stopped in the dark at stations whose names you will never know, and took on travellers, and set others down and rolled on, and you slept through all of it. Somewhere back there, hours ago, you crossed a line on a map and then another, and the whole character of the country changed beneath you, from the close green east to this vast pale west, and you are not awake for a single mile of the turning. There is something almost dreamlike in it, this being delivered whole and rested into a new world. It is the opposite of every hard journey ever made on foot or horseback, where every mile was paid for in sweat and every changing of the country was earned step by weary step. Here the distance simply gave itself to you while you lay easy in the dark. You closed your eyes in one America and opened them in another, and the only cost was a night's good sleep. No wonder it felt like magic to the travellers who first knew it. No wonder they wrote home about waking to find the world remade outside the glass. The plain is waking too. As the light strengthens, you begin to see the small life scattered across that great emptiness. A windmill turns slowly beside a lonely ranch house, the only upright thing for miles. A herd of cattle stands in the pale grass, and as the train goes by they lift their heavy heads all together and watch it pass with mild, dark eyes, and then bend again to their grazing. A dirt road runs straight as a ruled line to the horizon, and far down it a single truck raises a long plume of dust. The bigness of it all makes each small thing precious. A windmill, a house, a truck. Tiny tokens of human life set down in the middle of all that space. You lie back a moment longer, warm in your berth, watching the enormous country roll by golden in the growing light, and you feel a kind of quiet awe settle over you. The awe of a person who has just understood, in their body, and not only in their head, how truly vast their country is. We fly over all of it now in a single afternoon, sealed in a metal tube above the clouds, and we never see the ground change at all, never feel the great slow turning of one land into another. But to wake in your rocking berth and lift the shade on a world made wholly new while you slept, to know that the patient train had carried you clear into another country through the dark, was to feel the size of America the way it was meant to be felt, mile by mile, changing beneath you, and to be filled, first thing in the morning, with a wonder that stayed with you all the long day through. Come to breakfast now, back in the dining car, washed and combed and hungry in a way that clean morning air always makes you. The light is different at this hour, low and golden, pouring across the white tablecloths. There are eggs and bacon and toast, and coffee that fogs the window when you lift the cup. Out the glass the prairie unrolls, endless and gold, a lone windmill turning slowly, cattle lifting their heads to watch the train go by. You eat without hurry because there is nowhere else to be and nothing else to do, and that itself feels like a luxury you had almost forgotten was possible. Morning on a train is a slow and generous thing. You got yourself ready in the little washroom at the end of the car, and that was its own small adventure, splashing cold water on your face over a basin that swayed with the train, holding to a rail with one hand while you drew the razor with the other, watching your own tired, hopeful face in the mirror while the prairie streamed past the frosted window behind you. And now, combed and clean and awake, you make your way forward to the dining car with an appetite such as you rarely feel at home. The deep, clean hunger that comes from good sleep and fresh air, and the sheer animal pleasure of being carried alive through a bright new morning. The dining car is transformed by the morning light. Last night it had glowed golden and intimate under its lamps, a warm cave against the dark. Now it is flooded with sun, low and level, and pouring straight in through the eastern windows, lying in long, bright bars across the white tablecloths, catching the silver and setting it ablaze, warming the little flower in its vase until you would swear you could smell it. The whole car is bright and clean and full of morning, and the other early risers sit scattered at the tables, blinking and content, nursing their first cups, everyone gentled by sleep and unhurried, no one yet quite ready for talk. The waiter brings your breakfast, and it is a plain and perfect thing. Eggs, cooked just as you asked, the yolks deep gold. Bacon curled and crisp. Toast in its own little rack, still warm, with butter and a small pot of jam. And the coffee, above all the coffee, poured hot and black and steaming into the heavy china cup. So hot that when you lift it toward your mouth, its steam clouds the cold window pane beside you for a moment before clearing. You eat slowly, savouring, timing your fork once more to the sway of the car, and every bite tastes better than it has any right to, seasoned by the morning and the miles and the great gold country pouring by. For the country is the true feast at this hour, laid out endless beyond the glass. The prairie runs on and on in the low light, every blade of its pale grass edged with gold, the long shadows of the fence posts thrown far across it by the risen sun. A lone windmill stands against the enormous sky and turns, slow and patient, drawing up water for cattle you cannot see. And then you can see them, a scattered herd, and as the train draws near they lift their heavy heads from the grass, all together, and turn to watch you pass, following the train with their calm dark eyes until it is gone, and then bending once more to their endless breakfast as you bend to yours. There is no hurry anywhere. That is the wonder of it that you keep returning to, turning it over like a smooth stone in your hand. There is nothing you must do. No clock is chasing you. No task waits. You may sit here as long as you please, over your eggs and your endless coffee, watching a continent roll by, and no one will hurry you along, and nothing will be lost by your lingering, because the lingering is the whole point. The train will carry you just the same whether you rush your breakfast or draw it out for an hour, and so you draw it out luxuriously, an hour of doing nothing at all but eating well and watching the morning and being carried west. You lift the hot cup again and fog the window again and smile at your own reflection dim in the clouded glass. This, you think, is what a morning was always meant to be, and how rarely you have ever had one. We take our breakfast standing now, or bolt them at the wheel, or skip them altogether in our rush toward the day, the morning nothing but a gate to be gotten through as fast as we can. But to sit in a sunlit car over a good plain breakfast, dawdling on purpose, timing your fork to the gentle sway, watching the golden prairie unroll and the cattle lift their heads to see you pass, with nowhere on earth you needed to be, was to taste a slowness and a plenty that has grown very rare, and to understand that morning on a train was one of the last truly generous mornings left in the world. Let's slow down now, because the train is slowing too. It eases into a small-town station. No grand marble hall here, just a modest brick depot with a hand-painted sign and a wooden bench and a station master who knows every soul on the platform. You have a few minutes, so you step down into air that smells of dust and prairie grass and someone's breakfast cooking nearby. You stretch your legs on the boards. A boy sells newspapers. An old man in overalls waves at the engineer as though they are old friends, and perhaps they are. Then the conductor calls, and you climb back aboard, carrying the smell of that little town with you as it shrinks away behind the glass. You feel the slowing before you understand it, the rhythm of the wheels stretching out, the two-beat clack coming further and further apart, and then the long sigh of the brakes and the gentle backward tug as the whole train draws down to a walk and then to a stop. The stillness after so many hours of motion is startling. The car sits quiet on the rails, ticking faintly, and out the window there is a little town, dozing in the morning sun as though it had been dozing there for 100 years, and meant to go on dozing for 100 more. The depot is nothing at all like the great cathedral of a station you left behind. It is a small brick building, low and plain, with a peaked roof and a wide overhang to keep the sun and rain off the platform. The town's name is painted on a board in tall white letters, hand-lettered by someone long ago. The paint faded now to a soft, chalky ghost. There is a single wooden bench worn smooth and grey. There is a baggage cart with iron wheels standing empty. There is a water tower down the line and a grain elevator rising pale against the sky, the two tallest things for miles, and beyond them the prairie begins again at once and runs off to nothing. The station master comes out onto the platform, and you can see in an instant that he knows this place and everyone in it. He is a stout man in shirt sleeves and a green eye shade, and he has a word for the boy with the newspapers and a nod for the woman waiting with her parcel, and he raises a hand to a passenger stepping down as though welcoming home a nephew, which perhaps he is. He is the whole railroad here, ticket agent and telegrapher and baggage man and keeper of the town's one daily link to the wider world, and he wears all of it lightly, the way a man wears clothes he has had a long time. You have a few minutes, the conductor has said so, and you take them gratefully, stepping down onto the wooden boards to stretch your legs and fill your lungs with air that is not the train's. And, oh, the air! It is nothing like the close warm air of the car. It is wide and clean and smells of the prairie, of dust and dry grass and sun-warmed earth, and threaded through it, from somewhere just behind the depot, the good homely smell of somebody's breakfast, bacon and coffee, a kitchen window open to the morning. You stand there breathing it, turning your face to the sun, feeling the good ache of stillness in legs that have ridden a long way. The little life of the platform goes on around you. The boy works the crowd with his papers, calling the headline in a high clear voice, and a traveller buys one and tucks it under his arm. An old man in faded overalls leans against a post and watches the locomotive with the frank admiration of someone who has watched trains come through his whole life and never once tired of it. And up ahead the engineer leans out from the cab and lifts a hand to him, and the old man lifts his own in return, two friends greeting each other across the years, and something in the small exchange warms you though you do not know either man's name. Then it is over, as these things are, almost before it has begun. The conductor swings down and cups his hand to his mouth and sends the old cry rolling down the short platform all aboard, and there is a small unhurried scramble. The traveller folding his paper, the old man straightening from his post, a last word called out and a last hand raised. You climb back up the iron steps and find your seat, and with a gentle jolt the town lets you go, sliding backward past the glass, the depot and the faded sign and the water tower and the old man in overalls all shrinking away together until the prairie closes over them and they are gone. We blur past 1,000 such towns now on the highway, never slowing, never knowing they are there. But to stop in one for a few quiet minutes, to breathe its air and smell its breakfast and watch its one old man wave at the engineer, was to be given a small, true glimpse into a life not your own, and to carry the warmth of it with you, like the smell of the prairie in your coat, long after the little town had vanished behind you. Now let's step into the club car, where the trip becomes about the people. Here the seats are arranged for talking, and over the long hours something loosens in everyone. A travelling salesman tells a story with his whole face. A young mother shows a snapshot of the house they are moving toward. A soldier heading home says very little but listens to it all. You are strangers, every one of you, thrown together by nothing more than a shared direction, and yet by the second day you know their names and their troubles and the sound of their laughter. It is a kind of easy company we hardly make any more, unhurried, unguarded, gone the moment you all step off, but real while it lasts. The club car is built for this, and you feel it the moment you step in. The seats here are not the tall, forward-facing rows of the coaches, meant for watching the world go by alone. They are arranged in little groupings, chairs turned toward one another around small tables, a long upholstered bench beneath the windows, so that wherever you sit you're facing someone, near someone, half in a conversation before you have said a word. There is a small bar at one end where a man in a white coat mixes drinks and keeps up an easy patter, and the whole car has a warm, murmuring, sociable feeling, like the front room of a good hotel that happens to be crossing a continent. It does not happen all at once, the loosening. On the first afternoon, people are still polite and careful, still wrapped in the reserve they carry through the world, exchanging only nods and small remarks about the weather and the scenery. But the hours do their slow work. The miles pile up. There is nothing to do, and nowhere to be, and no one here anyone needs to impress. And little by little, the careful reserve begins to soften and fall away. A remark becomes a question. A question becomes an answer that runs on longer than it needs to. Someone laughs, and someone else joins in, and by the evening of the first day the little groupings have knit themselves into real conversations, and the car is full of the good warm sound of strangers becoming something more. You come to know them, these companions of the rails, better in 2 days than you know some people you've lived beside for years. There is the travelling salesman, a big genial man who tells his stories with his whole body, leaning in, throwing his hands about, letting his face do half the telling. And though you suspect he has polished these tales on 100 other trains, you laugh anyway, because he tells them so well and wants so plainly for you to enjoy them. There is the young mother, moving her children across the country toward new life, and she takes from her purse a small creased snapshot of the house that waits for them, and passes it around with shy pride, and everyone admires it, this little photograph of a stranger's hope. And there is the soldier, young and quiet, heading home, and he says very little, but he listens to all of it with a kind of hungry attention, as though he has been away from ordinary human talk for a long time and cannot get enough of it now. Now and then someone draws him out, and he answers briefly, and once he almost tells you something of where he has been, and then thinks better of it, and only smiles and looks out the window, and no one presses him, because on a train you take people as they wish to be taken, and there is a gentleness in that unspoken agreement that you do not soon forget. What binds you all is the strangest and simplest thing, that you happen to be going the same way. That is all. You did not choose one another, you will likely never meet again. And yet that shared direction, that common thread of rail running out ahead of you all into the west, makes a kind of family of you for a little while, an easy accidental fellowship with no past and no future, only this long bright present of shared hours and shared miles. You tell these strangers things you might not tell a friend, precisely because they are strangers, because your words will step off the train with them at some distant city and never follow you home. There is a freedom in it, and a sweetness that is very hard to describe to anyone who has not felt it. And you know, even as you sit among them laughing, that it cannot last, and that its not lasting is part of what makes it precious. When the train reaches the coast, you will all scatter, the salesman to his accounts, and the mother to her waiting house, and the soldier to whoever is counting the days until he comes, and the little fellowship of the club car will simply dissolve, as though it had never been, leaving nothing behind but a few names you will half remember, and the warmth of having, for 2 days, belonged. We guard ourselves so carefully now, our eyes down, our earphones in, walled off from the strangers all around us. But to sit in that warm murmuring car and let the miles dissolve your reserve, to become for 2 brief days the easy companion of people you would never otherwise have known, was to remember how quickly and how gladly strangers will open to one another when they are simply given the time, and to carry the ache and the gift of that fellowship long after every one of them had gone. Let's not forget the children, because a train was heaven for a child. Freed from the back seat of any car, they roam the length of the train like small explorers, up and down the swaying aisles, pressing their noses to every window, counting the cows, waving at the crossing gates. They discover the water cooler with its little paper cups and drink from it a dozen times just for the ceremony of it. The porters and the waiters treat them kindly, slip them an extra cookie, let them believe for a while that the whole great train is partly theirs. You watch them, and remember, perhaps, being small yourself, when a journey was pure adventure and not one moment of it was ever boring. Think of what a train must be to a child and you begin to understand their joy. A child in an automobile is a prisoner, strapped or squeezed into a back seat, told 100 times to sit still and stop kicking and quit asking how much longer, with nothing to do but stare at the backs of grown-up heads and wait for the misery to end. But a child on a train is free. The whole long length of it lies open before them, car after car after car, a rolling world to be explored end to end, and no sooner has the train left the station than off they go, down the swaying aisle on their unsteady sea legs, laughing when the motion sets them staggering, off to see everything there is to see. And there is so much to see. They press their noses flat to every window in turn, leaving little smudges the porter will wipe away smiling, calling out at everything that passes, a horse, a red barn, a lake, a boy on a bicycle. They learn to time their walk to the roll of the car, and they take a fierce pride in making it all the way down the aisle without once grabbing a seat back, arms out like tightrope walkers, faces set in tremendous concentration. They discover the thrill of the vestibule between the cars, that loud shifting iron room where the floor plates grind and the wind whistles in, and they dare one another to stand in it, hearts pounding until a grown-up shoos them back to safety. The great discovery, the one every child makes, is the water cooler. It stands at the end of the car, a tank of cold water with a stack of little paper cups folded into cunning pointed shapes, and the machinery of it is endlessly fascinating. The way you pluck a cup from the stack and hold it under the spout and press the lever and watch it fill. A child will drink from that cooler 12 times in an hour, not from any thirst, but purely for the ceremony of it, the plucking and the pressing and the drinking and the crushing of the little cup afterward, and no one has the heart to stop them, because it is such a small and harmless joy. The train's grown men take to the children too, and this is one of the tender things you notice. The porters, tired as they are, always have a wink and a kind word and will sometimes let a small boy pretend to help, or tell a wide-eyed girl a story about the biggest train they ever saw. The dining car waiters slip them an extra cookie when their mothers are not looking, or fold a napkin into a rabbit to make them laugh. The conductor lets a child hold his great gold watch for a moment, or punches a spare ticket just to give them the crescent of paper to keep. Between them all they conspire to let the children believe for the length of the trip that the whole magnificent train is partly theirs, run in some measure for their own delight. And watching them, you feel something turn over gently in your chest, because you were that child once, or wish you had been. You remember, or you imagine, what it was to be small and to have the whole world be new, when a journey was not an inconvenience to be endured, but a pure, unbroken adventure. Every mile of it crowded with wonders, not one dull moment in a whole long day. Somewhere along the way to being grown you lost that, traded the wonder for a wristwatch and a worry, learned to see a trip as time taken from your life rather than given to it. And the children remind you, without knowing they do, of the traveller you used to be. You watch a small girl press her face to the glass and gasp with delight at a river flashing past below a bridge, and you find you're smiling, and that some old locked door in you has opened just a crack. We strap our children down now behind glowing screens to keep them quiet, and count it a mercy when they do not look up for hours. But to see a car full of children turned loose upon a train, roaming free and wild-eyed through a world made just to be marvelled at, waving at every crossing, drinking from the cooler for the 10th time, believing the whole train theirs, was to be given back for a moment your own lost sense of wonder, and to remember with a sweet and aching clarity that a journey was once the finest adventure a child could be handed, and that some part of you has never entirely stopped being that child, nose to the glass, delighted by the world. Now hold on, because the country begins to rise. The flat gold plains give way to foothills, then to steep dark slopes of pine, and the train leans into long curves so that you can see the engine far ahead, working, straining, sending up a plume against the sky. The rhythm of the wheels changes, slower and deeper now, climbing. Tunnels swallow you into sudden roaring darkness and spit you back into blinding light. Rivers run white and fast in the gorges far below. You crane your neck at peaks with snow still on them in summer, and you feel very small and very lucky, tucked warm inside this thread of steel that dares to cross the roof of the whole country. It comes on gradually, the rising, so that at first you hardly mark it. The endless flat plain begins, almost shyly, to swell and roll, low golden hills gathering themselves out of the level land, and then higher hills behind them, and then, far off on the horizon, a long blue wall that you take at first for cloud and slowly understand to be mountains. The mountains, rising up across your whole path like something out of a story. Hour by hour they draw nearer and climb higher into the sky, and the closer they come, the less you can quite believe that the train means to cross them, that this thing of wheels and rails intends to climb clear over that mighty barrier of stone. But climb it does. The foothills close in around you, and the golden grass gives way to the deep dark green of pine, whole mountainsides of it, and the air that comes in at the cracked window turns cool and sharp and smells of resin and snowmelt and high clean stone. And now the train begins to lean. It bends into long, slow curves as it works its way up the grade, and on the outside of each curve you can look forward through the glass and see something you have not been able to see in 1,000 flat miles. The engine itself, far up ahead at the head of its own long train, labouring around the bend, throwing up a great plume of exhaust that hangs against the sky, and the sight of it working up there in the lead sends a thrill straight through you. You hear the labour of it too. The whole voice of the train has changed. Gone is the easy rolling clack of the flatland. Now the wheels grind slower and deeper, biting at the rails, and you can feel the engine straining beneath and ahead of you, pouring out its strength against the pull of the mountain and gravity itself. The train slows to little more than a walk on the steepest pitches, and there is something almost gallant in that slowness, in the great machine setting its shoulder to the grade and heaving upward, refusing to be beaten, hauling its whole long weight of steel and sleeping cars and travellers up toward the pass by sheer stubborn power. Then, without warning, a tunnel. The mountain simply opens its mouth and swallows the train whole, and in an instant the bright day is gone and you are plunged into a roaring blackness, the noise of the wheels slamming back off the close stone walls 100-fold, filling the car with sudden thunder. For a few long heartbeats there is nothing at all beyond the glass but your own dim reflection floating in the dark. And then, as suddenly, the mountain opens its mouth again and spits you back out into blinding light, and you blink and gasp as the whole enormous world floods back. The pines, the sky, the peaks, more dazzling than ever after the dark, and what the mountains show you between the tunnels leaves you speechless. On one side the slope climbs up and up beyond the top of your window, dark with timber. On the other, the land simply falls away, down and down into gorges so deep it turns your stomach to look, and far below at the bottom a river runs, white and wild and furious, hurling itself over the rocks, its roar lost entirely in the distance so that it seems to rage in perfect silence. You crane your neck upward, and there, impossibly high, are the peaks themselves, bare grey stone above the tree line, and on their tops, in the very middle of summer, the gleam of snow that never melts, so far above you that it hurts your neck to see it. You sit back, small in your warm seat, and let it all pour past the glass, and you feel two things at once, so mingled you cannot separate them. You feel your own smallness keenly, the smallness of a single person in a single train against the immense and ancient indifference of the mountains, and you feel, at the very same time, an enormous and grateful luck that you should be carried so safely and so warmly through the very heart of all that grandeur, tucked snug inside this daring thread of steel that men had somehow flung across the roof of the continent. We cross those same mountains now in minutes, 7 miles above them, and see nothing but the white tops of clouds. But to climb them slowly by rail, to feel the engine strain and hear the tunnels roar and crane your neck at the summer snow while the wild rivers raged silently in the gorges below, was to be made to feel both how small you were and how far human daring had reached, and to cross the great spine of your own country close enough to touch it, humbled and thrilled in the very same breath. Let's step for a moment into the vestibule, that little iron room between 2 cars, because every traveller eventually does. Here the sounds you have grown used to come roaring back to life. The floor plates shift and grind beneath your feet. Cold air whistles in around the edges. Through the window in the door you can see the coupling working, the 2 cars breathing against each other, and beyond it the ground rushing by in a blur. It is loud and a little thrilling and just a touch dangerous, and it makes the quiet comfort of your seat feel all the sweeter when you go back to it. Sometimes you have to stand in the noise to remember how good the calm is. You had passed through it a dozen times already, without ever quite stopping in it, hurrying from car to car on your way to a meal or the observation deck, and each time the sudden change had startled you before the far door closed it away again. But this time you stop. You let the door swing shut behind you, sealing off the warm, hushed world of the coach, and you stand a moment in the little iron chamber between the cars, and you let it be exactly what it is, loud and cold and alive, the raw beating joint of the whole great machine. The first thing is the noise. In the coach the wheels are a distant, gentled rhythm, softened by carpet and cushion and closed doors. Here there is nothing between you and them, and they come up through the shifting floor plates in a full-throated roar. The iron clatter of the trucks over the rail joints raw and unmuffled, so loud you could not easily make yourself heard. The 2 cars grind and mutter against each other, steel on steel, and the sound of it surrounds you completely, the true voice of the train with all its manners stripped away, and there is something bracing in standing right inside it. The floor is the strangest part, and the part that keeps the children coming back to dare each other. It's not 1 solid floor at all, but 2, the ends of the 2 cars nearly meeting, with heavy iron plates laid across the gap between them, and as the train sways and the cars work against one another, those plates shift and slide underfoot, tilting, grinding, opening the smallest black slivers between themselves through which, if you look, you can catch a flickering glimpse of the roadbed tearing past below. You plant your feet wide and ride the movement, and it is a little like standing on the deck of a small boat in a chop, and your heart beats a bit faster whether you will it to or not. The cold air finds you here too. However tightly the vestibule is built, The wind of the train's own passage whistles in around the edges of the doors and the folds of the connecting bellows, thin cold ribbons of it that had no place in the warm still coach, and it carries the outside smells with it, cinders and cold stone and pine and the sharp mineral breath of the mountain air rushing by. Through the little window set in the outer door you can see the coupling itself at work, the great iron knuckle that holds the two cars together flexing and easing as they lean into the curves, and beyond it the ground is not scenery anymore but a torn grey blur, hurtling close, real in a way it never is from your cushioned seat. It is, you realise, just a touch dangerous, or feels it, and that is precisely why you and every other traveller are drawn to stand here now and then. Everywhere else on the train you're wrapped in comfort and safety, cushioned and fed and rocked and looked after, held at a gentle remove from the raw fact of hurtling across the earth at speed. But here in the vestibule the remove falls away. Here you stand right at the edge of it, in the noise and the cold and the shifting iron, close enough to feel the true violence and power of your own passage, and it wakes something up in you, sharpens you, reminds your body that this smooth journey is in fact a wild and mighty thing. And then you have had your fill of it, and you turn and haul open the heavy door and step back through into the coach, and the door swings shut behind you, and the change is like balm. The roar drops away to its distant gentled rhythm. The cold is gone, and the warm still air folds around you. The floor beneath your feet goes solid and sure again. You make your way back to your own deep seat and sink into it, and the quiet and the comfort of it, which you had half stopped noticing, come flooding back to you now, doubled and sweet, precious in a way they were not an hour ago. We arrange our whole lives now for smoothness and safety, sealing ourselves away from every roughness and every risk, and then we wonder why the comfort we bought no longer seems to comfort us. But to step for a few minutes into the roaring cold heart of the train and then step back into the warmth was to learn the oldest secret of contentment, that the calm is only truly sweet to those who have just been standing in the noise, and to remember to be grateful, going back to your seat, for a peace you had forgotten you were lucky to have. Now let's sink into the afternoon, the slow, honeyed middle of a travel day. There is nothing you must do. The light comes slanting through the window and warms your knees. Someone plays a quiet hand of cards. A woman knits without looking down. You have read half your magazine and let it fall closed in your lap, content instead to simply watch the land go by, to let your mind wander loose and unhurried the way it so rarely gets to now. Time behaves differently on a train. It stretches out and softens, and in that long golden afternoon you feel a kind of rest you did not know you needed, the rest of having for once absolutely nowhere else to be. The light is the soul of it. By mid-afternoon the sun has swung around and come slanting low through the western windows, and it fills the car with a thick warm gold, the colour of honey, the colour of late-cut hay, lying in long bars across the plush seats and the sleeping faces and the backs of your own hands. It is a lazy, generous, forgiving light, the light of the day beginning its long, slow lean toward evening, and it warms your knees where it falls across your lap and makes you drowsy and content, so that you sink a little deeper into your seat and let your eyes go half closed against the glow. All around you the car has settled into the deep, easy quiet of a long day's travelling. The talk of the morning has worn itself out, and no one feels any need to start it up again. Across the aisle 4 men have made a table of a folded coat, and are playing a slow hand of cards, and the only sounds they make are the soft snap of a card laid down, and a low chuckle now and then, and long comfortable silences between. Behind you a woman knits, her needles clicking away steady and unhurried, her fingers working without her ever once glancing down at them, her eyes turned instead to the window and the passing land. Someone dozes, mouth slightly open, head nodding gently with the roll of the car. Someone hums, almost silently, a tune you cannot quite name. You had brought things to fill the hours, of course. A magazine, a book, a packet of letters, all the small defences a modern person carries against the terror of an empty minute. And for a while you read. But somewhere in the golden middle of the afternoon you find the magazine has drifted closed in your lap and you have not marked the losing of your place, and you do not reach to find it again. You have discovered that you would rather simply watch. The land pours by, gentle now, easy country, a farm, a fence line, a stand of trees around a distant house, a road that runs beside the track a while and then wanders off on business of its own. And you watch it all with a soft, unfocused attention that asks nothing and holds nothing and is perfectly deeply content. And your mind, given nothing it must do, begins at last to wander, and this is the rarest gift of the whole long day. It drifts where it will, loose and unhurried, the way a mind almost never gets to drift anymore. It circles back to old memories you had not thought of in years, and turns them over gently in the golden light. It wanders forward to the place you're going, and paints small, hopeful pictures of it. It settles, sometimes on nothing at all, simply resting, simply being, watching the fence post tick by. There is no worry sharp enough to hold it, and no task urgent enough to call it back, and it roams free through the wide country of itself the way you are roaming free across the wide country beyond the glass. Time itself, you notice, has come unstuck from its usual hurry. At home, the afternoon hours are a narrow ladder of appointments, each rung labelled and counted, the whole day something to be gotten through and used up. But here time has stretched out and gone soft and slow, pooling like the honeyed light, an hour lasting as long as it pleases, the afternoon opening out wide and unmeasured on every side. You could not say how long you've been watching the land. You do not care to know. The clock has loosened its grip on you entirely, and in its place there is only the long, slow, golden present, rolling gently westward with the sun. And in the middle of it, without ever deciding to, you find you've begun to rest, truly rest, in a way you had almost forgotten was possible, a rest that is not sleep and not idleness, but something deeper and older than either, the rest of a person who has, for once, absolutely nowhere else to be. The whole of the world's demanding has fallen away behind you with the miles, and there's nothing left to do but be carried warm and drowsy and content through the long gold afternoon. We have grown so frightened of the empty hour now, filling every gap with the small bright glow of a screen, that we have half forgotten how to simply sit and let the light warm our knees and our minds wander where they please. But to sink into that honeyed afternoon on the train, with nothing you must do and nowhere you must be, watching a gentle country roll by while a woman knits and men play their slow cards and time itself goes soft as honey, was to be handed back a kind of peace we have very nearly lost, and to discover, half drowsing in the golden light, exactly how tired you'd been and exactly how sweet it was to finally rest. Let's watch the land change once more, into something out of a dream. The mountains fall away behind, and the country opens into desert, wide and red and utterly unlike anywhere you have ever lived. Mesas rise flat-topped against a sky so blue it aches. The earth glows in rust and rose and gold, and the shadows stretch long and purple as the day wears on. You pass through country the colour of a sunset, even at noon. Somewhere out there the old Harvey House waiters serve travellers cool drinks on shaded platforms. You sit with your face to the glass, quiet, taking it in, because you understand you may never see anything quite this beautiful and this strange again. The change comes on you slowly as the train winds down out of the high country, the dark pine and the cold, clean air giving way by degrees to something you have no name for. The trees thin and then vanish altogether, and the green goes out of the world, and in its place comes an enormous dry openness that makes even the great prairie seem close and cluttered by comparison. The air that comes in at the window turns warm and dry and faintly spiced, smelling of dust and sun-baked stone and some low silver-grey brush you cannot identify, and the land, freed of everything that grew on it, shows you at last its own bare skin, and its skin is the colour of fire. For the earth here is red, truly red, red as brick, red as rust, red as banked coals, and where it is not red it is rose and ochre and a deep burnt gold, and it runs out from the tracks in every direction to a horizon impossibly far away. You had not known ground could be such a colour. It looks less like soil than like something painted, or something lit from within, and over it all arches a sky so vast and so pure and so violently blue that it makes your chest ache to look up into it, a blue with no softness in it anywhere, hard and clean and endless, and out of that painted plain rise the mesas, and these stop your breath entirely. They stand alone or in scattered companies, great tables of red rock lifted flat-topped against the blue, their sides sheer and banded in 100 shades of rose and rust and violet, their tops as level as though some giant hand had sheared them off clean. They are so strange, so still, so ancient, that they seem to belong to another world altogether, and the train runs beneath them small as a beetle, and you crane at them through the glass in a kind of reverent silence, unable to look away, unable to quite believe that such shapes exist and that you are truly passing among them. As the long afternoon wears on, the light does something to the desert that you will remember all your life. The sun swings low, and its rays come slanting long and gold across the red land, and the whole country begins to burn and deepen and glow. The mesas catch the light on their western faces and blaze, while behind them their shadows stretch out across the plain, longer and longer, and those shadows are not grey at all, but a deep, dusty purple, pooling in every hollow and running out from the foot of every rock. The earth reddens toward crimson. The sky above the horizon flushes rose and then a burning orange. It is a sunset, but it is a sunset that has soaked down into the very ground, so that you seem to be travelling through the inside of one, wrapped on every side in fire and rose and violet. There were places out in that great emptiness where the train would pause and travellers spoke of them with a kind of fondness. Somewhere along the line at the little desert stations, the old Harvey House waitresses in their crisp black and white would be waiting on the shaded platforms, and travellers would step down out of the heat into the cool of the dining room, or take a cold drink standing in the shade of the depot roof, gazing out at the shimmering painted distance while the engine took on its water. You may or may not stop at such a place yourself, but you like knowing they are out there. These small islands of coolness and courtesy set down in the middle of all that magnificent desolation, tending to the travellers who cross the painted country. Mostly, though, you simply sit, your face close to the warm glass, and you take it in, and you say nothing, because there is nothing to say. The desert does not invite chatter. It invites the kind of silence you keep in a great cathedral or beside a sleeping child, a silence that is really a form of attention, of trying to take something in whole and hold it. You watch the mesas glide by, and the long purple shadows, and the red earth glowing like coals, and you have the clear and quiet certainty that you are looking at something you will not see again, that this hour is a gift given once and not repeated, and you spend it the only way such an hour can be rightly spent, which is by giving it your whole self. We fly over this country now in the dark or above the clouds, or we hurry across it on the highway with the glass rolled up and the miles to be killed, and we call it empty, and we are glad when it is behind us. But to cross the painted desert slowly by rail in the long slanting light of a dying afternoon, to sit in silence with your face to the glass while the mazes burned and the shadows ran purple and the whole enormous land glowed, the colour of a sunset from horizon to horizon, was to understand that this country we call empty is in fact one of the most beautiful and strange and holy places on the whole earth, and to carry the memory of that burning painted afternoon, quiet and unfaded, for the rest of your natural life. And so, we come to the end of the line, you and I, 3 days and 2,000 miles from where we started. What a thing it was, this slow crossing. The great station full of morning light, the warm gold dining car with its trembling silver, the country pouring past the observation glass, and the porter making up your berth, and the whole train rocking you to sleep beneath a sky spilled over with stars. It was never really about getting anywhere. It was about the getting there, the long unhurried grace of a journey you sank into rather than rushed through. Think, tonight, of the people who lived this. The conductor with his gold watch, holding the whole train in his careful hands. The redcap who lifted your bags like feathers. The porter who kept his quiet watch through the dark so a carful of strangers could sleep. They did not think they were living in a golden age. They are just doing their work and doing it well and taking care of the travellers who passed through their hands. There was dignity in that, a kindness in the small courtesies, the tipped cap, the remembered name, the coffee cup filled again without asking. Maybe carry a little of it forward with you, not the trains which are mostly gone, but the slowness, the willingness to sit and watch the light move and let your mind wander loose, the grace of noticing a single quiet moment instead of hurrying past it toward the next. So tonight, as you settle deeper and let your breathing slow, let the train rock you the way it rocked them, gently, side to side, mile after mile into the dark. You are safe. You are warm, and the long, quiet country is still rolling by just beyond the glass. Rest now. Good night.